At this moment in time and for the near future, they're insignificant. She's only a interim leader.
She's got very little to lose. Get some policies together and say, these are my policies, this is my vision, follow me or get out. Kemi Badenoch, as we've discussed in the past, is only the seventh most popular person in the Tory party to actually be the leader. Every time there's a poll between her, Farage, and Starmer to see who would be the most popular Prime Minister of this country, she comes in third. And whereas sometimes you might see Starmer 25, Farage 24, vice versa, changing up and down, Kemi is coming in at 12, 13, 14%. She's a long, long way behind those two. PMQs, for people that are sad enough to watch it like me, was another unmitigated disaster. Just 2 weeks ago, I made a video about Kemi on PMQs, and she actually had a very, very good week, and I was really impressed with her. She hammered Starmer. I can't remember the topic now, but she hammered him, and it was very, very good. And he was floundering and acting like an arrogant idiot, like he does a lot of the time. But this week, again, she decided to use her questions on the question of Gazans being able to immigrate over here through that through the Ukraine scheme because a judge has allowed it. She asked Starmer, "Are you going to stop this? This isn't right," etc. Starmer straight away, unexpectedly to her, said, "Yes, it's wrong, and we are going to close that loophole." That was it then. So Kemi had no plan B. She then went again on question 2 and 3 on asking him exactly the same thing in a slightly different way. And Starmer eventually, I won't say I sympathised with Starmer, but I got his point. On the third question, he went, "Look, I've answered it 3 times now. I've told you, yes, we're going to close the loophole." But she kept asking the same questions. There was no, if he, fair enough, it's unexpected. I would have expected Starmer to talk a lot of crap and say, "Oh, well, we'll have to look at this and that." But he completely blindsided her. And she was left completely floundering. She had nothing else to ask him. She was made to look stupid. The people on her own benches sitting behind her could you could just see their faces thinking, what's she doing? You know, uh, in a way, I feel sorry for her. I've said this to you before. I think she's being what's the word? Pushed out. I think that they're intentionally pushing her out. They're making her look ridiculous. And in a way, I do feel sorry for her because she stood there making an absolute tit of herself every single week. There is no way a political party that has survived as long as the Tories, probably the oldest political party in the developed world, can be this bad at PMQs. They've never done it before. Maybe Theresa May's was a poor time, but mostly they've never done this before. And all of a sudden, Kemi's there. She's not popular. They're tanking in the polls. The worst I've seen them, by the way, was it last week? They were polling at 18%, which is absolutely horrendous. Possibly the worst result. I think it would be if that was to materialize into a general election. I think that'd be the worst result in their entire history. And they've been around for well over 100 years, the Tory party.
I think it's 250 years.
Oh, there you go then. So I think she's being set up. She's being made to look a fool. And whether that's because the men in grey suits didn't want her, the people that run the party, maybe they didn't want her in the first place and they're not happy with her, like when they got Liz Truss. I believe Liz Truss was well and truly hung out to dry by the party. They didn't want her, they wanted Sunak. Maybe instead of her, they've got somebody else in mind. But I don't think it'll be a generic. I think it'll be somebody sitting in the wings somewhere who's already been spoken to. Sit down, keep quiet, keep your powder dry, and you'll be a leader in 6 months. I don't see Kemi making it another 6 months. I really don't. I'd be surprised if she gets past May because I think the Tories are going to get an absolute walloping in these elections. I mean, possibly even a worse result than Labour, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see on that. But I think they're going to get an absolute walloping, and she'll be the one that carries the can for it, even though it's not all her fault. But she is the leader.
Well, we've been saying this, both of us have been saying it for months. She's only a interim leader. After the disaster of the general election, they had to elect somebody, and whoever they elected was always going to be temporary until they sorted themselves out. And that temporary leader always gets the worst of it and gets, the worst end of the stick. And it's a leader who comes after that has got a better chance of being a long-term leader. And she's just been placed there as a puppet and there'll be a civil war at the moment in the Tory party between the wets and the real Tories about who takes over. And at the moment, it's just the wets because most of the MPs are basically Lib Dems anyway. And there's probably someone in the wings that the men in grey suits thinking that's our long-term leader. Let Kemi do all the heavy lifting, take all the flack, and then we can blame her for everything. And this new person comes along who hasn't got the stench of the last 14 years on them, and that can be the leader. So all these shenanigans will be going on.
You know what I think she could do? Well, I'll tell you what I'd do if I was in her shoes. I'd roll the dice. I'd think, right, I don't look very good anyway. My party isn't a massive fan of me. The membership don't really like me. We're not doing well in the polls. I'm basically starting from rock bottom here. We've just took an absolute tonking in the elections. Things can't really get much worse. What's the only thing that can happen is I lose my job, and she'll still be in Parliament anyway, so it's not the end of the world. She's still got a fat salary, and she'll probably get some sort of shadow minister position anyway. I would be taking the Boris approach now, the Boris and Dominic Cummings approach, and I'd come out publicly and I would say anybody in this party that doesn't want to follow me and doesn't want to follow my vision, go and join the Lib Dems, go and join the Labour Party. They've only got 120 odd MPs anyway. What's the difference if you go down to 100? Absolutely nothing. Sod all. Even if you go down to less than 100, tell these people follow me or get out. Show some tough leadership and see how many actually walk. Make them fall into line. Boris had to kick out, if you remember, people like Ken Clark, who was the father of the house at the time. As soon as he voted against him, lose the whip, see you later. And he actually had to give up. He left himself in a position where he couldn't even call an election because we still had the Fixed Term Parliament Act at the time. So he had to sit there getting beaten every week until eventually the other parties could see that an election had to be called because they were sick to death of all this politicking going on with Corbyn and the Lib Dems, etc. So why doesn't Kemi just roll the dice? It's not in her gift to call an election anyway. She's got very little to lose. Get some policies together and say, these are my policies, this is my vision, follow me or get out. And if the Tories turn around and then boot her out, her public opinion for actually showing some principle and showing some conservative values, if her policies represent that, would then rocket. People would think, oh, this woman's actually got some principle. I quite like that. And then she'd be far better off than whichever Tory wet then took over from her. Because you'd be absolutely right, it'd be the wets that would go against her, the people that don't actually belong in the Conservative Party. But she either stands up to them or she gets out because these people will bring her down in the end anyway, just like they did with Boris, just like they did with Truss. They got their man in Sunak and they got battered. So it's do or die. It's getting towards do or die time. I know she hasn't been there long. It's a difficult job, and everything that's happened in the past isn't always her fault. But she was in the government for a lot of that time. She was in Parliament for a lot of that time, and she didn't speak out. On immigration, for example, she's got no authority whatsoever because she was the one fighting her own party to get more people let into this country and celebrated when more people were let into this party. So everything she says, Starmer can just come back with, well, look at the last 14 years. And I'm afraid it's a thankless task he's got at the minute. But like I just said, it's do or die. She either puts up or shuts up.
I completely agree. She's got nothing to lose. The Tories are still unelectable and will be for a long time. Um, she needs to show her party in the country that she's a leader and that she has ideas. I don't think any of that's in her, but that's what I would do. Tip the table upside down and see where the chips fall, because you finished anyway. At least it looks like you're going out fighting it. You may get some luck on your side. Things may happen, but continuing down the status quo is going to get you nowhere. Have you watched the interview she did with Trigonometry?
No, I haven't. No.
I've not watched it yet. I saw the clip of it, but it's on my list to watch, hopefully, this weekend. And again, on the video, she's saying, we're not coming out of the ECHR. It's like,
Yeah.
can again, she's doing the job she's been put in there to do, and she won't be there much longer. And then we'll see what the Tories do after that.
Yeah, well, what I think I know exactly what they'll do. They'll get the man or woman that they originally wanted in the first place before Kemi got the job. Who that's going to be, I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't know. It'll be someone I don't like very much, I imagine. But it won't be a generic, even though he's by far the favourite to be the next leader. But the Tory party knows now that if they were to get rid of Kemi, and have another leader election, a leadership contest, that contest would then be between Jenrick and a few other no-hopers, and Jenrick would win it hands down because I don't believe he actually believes half the stuff he's saying because he's never been on the right of the party before. But all of a sudden he's had this this conversion to the right of the party. But if Jenrick ran in a leadership contest now, he'd win it comfortably. And I don't believe he's the person that CCHQ wants in charge either. They want some boring centrist who's going to just toe the line, who's going to be one of these Tory wets. And off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody that would be good enough to be leader. I mean, the people that Chris Philp isn't too bad that sits alongside him. He's the Shadow Home Secretary, I think, or is it Shadow Chancellor or something like that? He puts himself about in the media quite a bit. I think he'd have a stab at it. But I don't think he's a wet either. I think he's on the right of the party. So, I mean, they've got so little MPs left. There's been, I'm lost. I'm not for how bad this part. I was a diehard Tory, Nick, mate. I'm absolutely diehard until they locked us down for a second time. And to see the party in the state it's in now, and with some of the good MPs have gone, your John Redwoods of this world, um, who else? Jacob Rees-Moggs of this world, people that were actually conservatives have gone, and you're left with this rabble of losers basically who've got no morale. They've got no policies, nothing to campaign on. They know they're walking into another slaughter in the local elections. It's just an absolute basket case of a party. And it doesn't seem to have a vision, it doesn't have a direction. Are they on the left, right, centre? And everyone knows that Kemi is a lame duck leader. And like I said, going back, sorry to repeat myself, but I'd be rolling the dice now. Like you said, turn the table upside down and let the chips fall where they may and go out fighting at least instead of looking like this wimpy, weak woman, which I don't think she is, but she's looking like that, and it's a very, very bad public perception she's got.
Yeah, I think the only consolation is they're insignificant as a party. So it's not worth worrying about them. It's not worth trying to figure out what they're doing and why they're doing it and who should take over. At this moment in time and for the near future, they're insignificant. There's only two parties worth talking about in the UK. One's Reform and the other one's Labour because they're in power. Tories, insignificant.